Moving along, we heard a little bit of Meir's journey, which started 12 years ago. And now we're going to hear from Chaya Eigner, who I just found out today's Yutes Kislev. Well, today isn't, yesterday was Yutes Kislev, but Chaya and Ephraim moved to Hampstead exactly 10 years ago on Yutes Kislev 2015. So Mayor Hockenbach spoke about divine providence and how that led to his journey here. And now we get to hear from Chaya Eigner, which I'm quite certain took a different path for her journey here. We look forward to hearing your words. So I welcome Chaya to the stage, and I'm going to raise the microphone. Yes, as high as I can put it. I might need your help. I can't reach that high. I think this could be good, actually. Yeah, it was loose. I tried to tighten it.
Yes, fine. Can you hear me? Good evening. Thanks, Evan, for the introduction. My journey to Hasidus is an interesting one, different than the usual. I wasn't born to a family that was disconnected from Yiddishkeit. In fact, I was born to a very prominent Satmar family in Utrama. My father is one of the leaders in his shul. His brother, who we called Fetter Avram, is the mayor of Monroe. This is a small Hasidic town in upstate New York. We're a very well-known Satmar family. I should have grown up with a strong connection to Yiddishkeit, but I didn't. We are 5 girls and a boy in the family, but I was unhappy from a young age. My father has a strong connection to Torah and to Hashem, but he also had very strict rules. We were always a little bit more religious, a little bit more stringent than anyone else. We weren't allowed, for example, I'm a very big reader. We weren't allowed to read even Jewish books unless they were written in Yiddish. We weren't allowed to listen to music. Like even music that my friends would listen to was considered, like Abraham Fried, like Mordechai Ben David, was considered too modern. There were a lot of rules like that. We couldn't go to amusement parks. We couldn't go to the library. We couldn't. I just always felt a little bit apart. But the hardest part for me, I have to say, my father wanted us to wear braids. We looked like Amish kids. I felt very uncomfortable in my own skin. I was already the tallest girl in the school at the age of 12 years old. And so for me, that extra layer of being different, looking different. I didn't feel good. I felt uncomfortable in my own skin. It was difficult for me. So Yiddishkeit became a burden. It became something that I couldn't connect with, that I associated with pain and unhappiness. To be fair to my younger self, also I hated Jewish studies because the way they taught us in our school, for me, learning is very literal. I connect with the words. The words resonate with me. I love opening a Chumash, opening a Gemara. To me, the original word, the original Hebrew, the original Aramaic, that's what speaks to me. In our school, girls are not allowed to open a Chumash. They're not allowed to open a Gemara. Everything we learn, because we did learn, is like a watered down version. Because even our teachers aren't allowed to learn inside. They're not allowed to learn from the text. So they have to like get it secondhand, and it just didn't resonate for me, and I found it very dry and uninteresting. Also, there were a lot of don'ts. All through my teenage years, I yearned for freedom. To me, freedom was represented by like reading English books, by listening to good music, not necessarily not Jewish music, but just good music. Like there's just a lot of restrictions, a lot of limitations, and I was I just, to me, that was the ultimate. That was going to be, a good life. I got engaged at the tender age of 17. My parents were hoping that a happy marriage would help me embrace Yiddishkeit. Unfortunately, it was a really not a good match. And after 5 months, we parted ways. And I was still searching. I was still looking for a way out. Then I met Ephraim, my husband. It's now 35 years since we're married, Baruch Hashem. We were introduced actually by a classmate of mine who's also a dear friend, and her husband knew Ephraim from yeshiva. We were introduced. We hit it off right away. We decided to get married. I was only 19 years old when I got married the second time. And I was young. I had no idea what marriage was all about. And I also had zero aspirations when it came to Yiddishkeit. Like, I didn't even think about it. Like, all I wanted to do is just, quote unquote, be free. I wanted to be free. And I figured marriage was going to give me that freedom. Also, what I wanted, what I dreamt about, is having a baby. I've always loved children. I love babies to this day. And I just couldn't imagine living my life without it. And I imagined living it like that because we didn't have children for over 3 years, and it was hard. It was one of the hardest things I went through. But instead of connecting to Hashem and to praying to Him on a deep level, it was all very like a little child who cries for a candy, and then finally, when Hashem gave me that candy, when He gave me that gift, instead of being filled with gratitude, being filled with love, I just moved on. We had twins, and 14 months later, our youngest was born. That means we had children, 3 children under the age of 14 months. It was not an easy time. It was overwhelming. It was a lot. I was young. Money was tight. I just didn't have a moment to think. My regret going back, when I think back, was that I didn't raise my children with a love for Yiddishkeit, for Judaism. We did everything by rote. Things were done without joy, without meaning. It was just, what everyone else did, and just what you had to do. This is what you had to do, but there was very little connection. I lost touch with my classmates and most of my community, except for my family. Even while we were still living in Uchma. I credit 2 things for keeping me tethered to Yiddishkeit. One, I was taught from a young age, Meir alluded to it, I was afraid of going to Gehenna, to hell. And the second thing, the more important thing that kept me connected, is my sisters, my family. I'm extremely close. We are 5 girls, and I'm extremely close. I consider them my best friends to this day. They are awesome women, very connected, each in their own way. And they never rejected me. They never looked down on me. Even my values were different. I even dressed differently. I wore nail polish. I did things even in Uchma, which wasn't the typical in Uchma. I have to qualify something important. That way of life is a beautiful way of life, and there's a lot of beauty to be found there. 5 years ago, I reconnected with my classmates. I've become such good friends with them. We speak on a daily basis. We have a class line. We catch up on each other's news every day. We learn. We sing Tehillim together. We sing Hallel every Rosh Chodesh. It's beautiful. And I see these women, and I can say unequivocally, they're connected to Hashem, each in their own special way. I wasn't able to find that connection there, but it's not. I really don't mean, my intention is not to bash that way of life. It's a beautiful way of life. There's a lot of beauty in it. For me, it didn't work. It wasn't my derech, and I didn't find it when I was there, when I lived there. So once our kids all left home, I couldn't wait to leave Uchma. And Ephraim was right there with me. He too felt distant and rejected. The fact that we ended up here in Hampstead is pure Hashgacha Prutis. We had befriended Tommy Schnermacher. I don't know, you probably all know who he is. He's used to be a talk show host. We became very good friends years earlier. I had gotten to know him because I interviewed him for an article that I wrote for a magazine. And we became such good friends. He used to come to our house every Matzah Shabbos for a period of 10 years. And we had what you guys would call a Farbrengen, what at that point we didn't know was called a Farbrengen. Just a bunch of guys getting together, having a good time. And it was our way of living on the wild side. For us, this was like, so different and so not the usual, what we were used to. Speaking of living on the wild side, when I was 35 years old, I decided that I was going to learn how to drive. Now, women in Uxmal do not drive. And especially my family, it was considered like a big no-no. But I found it so hard. First of all, to me, it was like so limiting. But aside for that, Ephraim was working long hours every day. I needed to go take the kids to appointment, go shopping. I had to rely on Ephraim. It was either a taxi during the day or shop locally. And I had enough. One day I said, I'm going to learn how to drive. I told Ephraim I was going to learn how to drive, and he was like, not happy about it. He thought he hated the idea of standing out, like just being different. You have to be just like everyone, just have to conform. But I was never a conformist. So we made a deal. He said, you know what? You can learn how to drive, but you can't drive in Uxmal. We lived, we lived at the edge of Uxmal. We lived near Van Horn. So you could go west, but you can't go east. So I said, okay, like, I don't have to go to Uxmal. Most of the things I need anyway. It's like, so fine. I'm not a good rule follower as a rule anyway. One day he asked his colleague to drive him to work so I could take the car for an appointment. Um, on my way home, I spontaneously decided I'm going to Chesky's. I need to get a few things from Chesky's. So I remember parking the car at Bernard Street and walking out of the car. I felt very conspicuous. And this man walks up right in front of me, and he's a good friend of my father. And he gave me a look. He was appalled. I won't ever forget the look on his face. To my luck, Ephraim's friend was passing by with Ephraim as I was stepping out of the car. So, of course, he saw me. And I came home, and he's like, what will the neighbors say? Like, it sounds funny, but it's really true. It's a big stigma. Truth be told, it was a big scandal and got out that I had started to drive. Tommy was the one who introduced us to Joni and Freddie Tansey. We were more than ready to leave Uxmal, but we were worried about a good shidduch, a good match for our children. I'm serious, I'm not kidding. The idea that we would be living in Hampstead, it, it's too modern, and for them, I mean, living in Uxmal, it's all about like it's a label. So for them, it was just not, it would have been. So we said, okay, we're going to stick around till the twins get engaged. So, you know, the shidduch wouldn't be affected. We did, but finally, when they finally all that was done, a condo unit opened up in the Vicomte right next to Tommy Schnermacher, and we grabbed it. Like Evan said, it was on Yad Kislev that we made that move 10 years ago. It was, yeah. I feel I feel because it's Yad Kislev, I feel like the Rebbe was like working behind the scenes. Hashem had his own plans for us. Yeah, we had no idea when we were doing it. The truth is, we didn't decide to move because we were looking to connect to Hashem. We didn't find our place in Uxmal. We felt judged and unwelcome, and we couldn't wait to leave. It could have gone terribly wrong had we not been embraced so completely and so immediately by all of you We might have lost our courage before we found our place in the community. So thank you to all of you. And instead of getting further away from Hashem, we were brought closer to Him in a way we never imagined. I've always had a love for learning, but learning Torah wasn't something that I was taught to do. Where I grew up, women do not learn Torah. I mean, we learn certain things, but it's very regimented and very. To me, I couldn't connect to it. Although also, I have to say things have changed since I moved 10 years ago, and now more women are learning. There's actually a Tanya class in Ujamaa in today, but that wasn't the case 10 years ago. After we moved, I slowly became exposed to learning. Once I began to learn, Yiddishkeit began to look attractive. Things began to make sense. They began to click. I started with Gemara, and then Chumash, and then Hasidus. All of a sudden, this whole new world of Torah opened up for me. I began attending classes at the MTC, and they were an eye-opener. Hasidus taught me that Judaism, Yiddishkeit, is not harsh, that mitzvahs are sweet, shaking the lulav, sitting in the sukkah. As a woman, I'm not obligated in those mitzvahs. Shabbos used to be a burden for me. I used to wait for it to end. That has changed. I now savor these mitzvahs. Speaking of learning, I would like to share a thought that I learned about Hanukkah. When the Jews were persecuted by the Greeks, led by Antiochus, the Greeks weren't looking to annihilate the Jews. They were looking to sever their connection to Hashem. They had no problems with the run-of-the-mill mitzvahs. What they targeted specifically were mitzvahs that would connect you to Hashem. So the three major ones, they banned bris milah, circumcision, they banned Shabbos, and they banned Rosh Chodesh, a mitzvah associated with the Jewish calendar. The Jews merited the miracle of Hanukkah because they refused to capitulate to the demands of the Greeks, and they held on with amazing Mesiras Nefesh, with self-sacrifice to their connection to Hashem, and that's how they merited the miracle of Hanukkah. Before the birth of Hasidus, there were plenty of good Jews. They learned Torah, they kept mitzvahs, they prayed, but the motivation was reward and punishment, schar v'yoinish. It was all about your portion in Olam Habu, in the world to come. The more pious you were, the bigger your portion in heaven. Hasidus revolutionized Yiddishkeit. It taught that we do mitzvahs not for the reward, not because we're Jews and this is our rule book and that we have no choice, not because we're afraid to go to Gehenna, to hell. We do it because we love Hashem, and this is our way to connect to Him. This is how we demonstrate our love for Him. The reward is a consequence, but it's not what motivates us. I'll finish off with this. We live in the big home where the majority of the residents are Jewish. A few weeks ago, it was a Friday afternoon, I was in the elevator, and the neighbors, a few of us were discussing how cold the weather had gotten, and I was thinking this Friday night, I have to walk really far, and it's so cold, and I was mentioning this, and this guy says, this Jewish guy turns to me and says, "You guys have a red telephone straight to heaven. Why don't you just pray to God?" And I looked at him, I said, you're right, we all actually have that red telephone straight to heaven. And I realized that that's what Hasidus taught me, that we are all directly connected to Hashem. And when you learn Hasidus, you recognize that truth and you live with that truth. Thank you.
Shkoya, thank you, Chaya. Thank you, Ephraim. Good friends, and we're fortunate to have you in Hampstead. You're fortunate to have Hampstead. Hampstead's fortunate to have you.